If we fail, I will never let them take us alive.
These words, spoken by Robert Smalls to his wife Hannah on the eve of their desperate and brave gamble for freedom, set the stage for one of the most daring escapes in American history. In the dead of night, as Confederate Charleston slept, a 23-year-old enslaved man stood at the helm of a stolen military vessel, his terrified family hidden below deck, his future hanging by a thread. One wrong signal, one mistake at any of the 4 Confederate checkpoints ahead, and certain death awaited them all. What happened next would not only secure his place in history, but transform American politics forever. By the end of this video, you'll discover how this extraordinary man went from property to congressman, outsmarted the Confederate Navy, and accomplished something many Americans still don't know about today. This is the remarkable story of Robert Smalls, the man who refused to wait for freedom. Before dawn on May 13, 1862, Robert Smalls did something that seemed impossible. With the white officers of the Confederate steamship CSS Planter ashore for the night, Smalls saw his opportunity. He gathered his fellow enslaved crew members, picked up their families who were waiting at a predetermined location, and boldly navigated the vessel out of the Charleston harbor, right past heavily armed Confederate fortifications. But how did a man born into slavery pull off one of the most daring escapes of the Civil War? And what happened after he reached freedom? Robert Smalls was born on April 5, 1839, in Beaufort, South Carolina. Born not as a person with rights, but as property. His mother, Lydia, was enslaved by Henry McKee. While Robert's father was an unknown white man, it is speculated that McKee was his biological father. From his earliest days, the brutal reality of the American slave system shaped his existence. Smalls grew up immersed in Gullah culture, a distinctive blend of African traditions, language, and customs preserved by enslaved people along the South Carolina and Georgia coast. This cultural heritage, with its emphasis on community, resilience, and maintaining African traditions despite oppression, would shape Smalls' identity and worldview throughout his life. Unlike many enslaved children, Smalls experienced unusual privileges due to his mother's position in the McKee household. Lydia was determined her son would understand both the world of enslavement and the possibilities beyond it. She arranged for him to work in Beaufort town, exposing him to a wider world than the plantation, while ensuring he understood the harsh realities of slavery by taking him to witness whippings at the town square.
My son must understand what freedom means by knowing what bondage is.
By age 12, Smalls' enslaver sent him to Charleston to be hired out as a laborer, where he worked as a waiter, hack driver, and eventually a rigger on the ships. Despite being denied formal education, Smalls absorbed everything he could about maritime navigation, memorizing the intricate waterways, signals, and protocols of Charleston Harbor. What his enslavers didn't realize was that with each passing day, Smalls was gaining knowledge that would eventually lead to one of the most audacious escapes in American history. In Charleston, Smalls met and fell in love with Hannah Jones, an enslaved hotel worker. They married and soon welcomed their first child. With a growing family to protect, Smalls worked multiple jobs, saving every penny he could toward the $800 price demanded for his family's freedom, an astronomical sum for an enslaved man. When the Civil War erupted in 1861, Smalls was forced to work aboard the CSS Planter, an armed Confederate military transport vessel carrying weapons and ammunition. Though he served as the ship's pilot, navigating the vessel through the complex waterways, he remained enslaved, with his wife Hannah and their children still in bondage. As the war intensified, Smalls realized his opportunity to purchase freedom was slipping away. One night in early May 1862, he sat down with Hannah for a conversation that would change their lives forever.
We could be sold away from each other at any moment. The only way I can ensure our family stays together is to escape. If we fail, I will never let them take us alive.
This wasn't just about freedom for himself. It was about keeping his family together and giving his children a future where they wouldn't be considered property. With this resolve, Smalls began planning the most daring escape of the Civil War. For months, Smalls carefully observed the ship's operations, the Confederate signals, and the routines of the white officers. Then, on May 13, 1862, when the officers disembarked to spend the night in Charleston, Smalls saw his chance. In the early morning darkness, Smalls donned the captain's wide-brimmed straw hat and coat as a disguise. With remarkable courage, he and the other enslaved crew members fired up the Planter's boilers and sailed to a nearby wharf where their families waited. With 16 enslaved people now aboard, including Smalls' wife and children, he faced the most dangerous part of the journey, navigating past 4 heavily armed Confederate checkpoints. The crew was terrified.
What if they recognize us? They'll kill us all.
Keep your heads down. I'll handle this.
At each checkpoint, Smalls gave the correct signals, even mimicking the captain's posture and mannerisms, while the others hid below. The tension must have been unbearable as they approached Fort Sumter, the most dangerous checkpoint of them all. The crew urged him to stay as far away as possible, but Smalls made a crucial decision. Changing course would arouse suspicion. He maintained his heading, gave the proper signal, and after a few tense moments, received clearance to proceed. As they cleared the last Confederate fortification, dawn began breaking over the horizon. Now they faced a new danger. The Union blockade fleet might fire on them before recognizing their intentions. Smalls ordered a white bedsheet to be raised as a surrender flag. A white flag of surrender now clearly visible to Union forces. Once in open waters, Smalls surrendered the Planter, along with its valuable cargo of weapons and ammunition, to the Union blockade fleet. In one bold move, he had delivered himself, his family, and his fellow crew members from slavery to freedom. As he approached the USS Onward, Smalls reportedly called out,
Good morning, sir. I've brought you some of the old United States guns, sir.
News of Smalls' daring escape spread rapidly throughout the North. Newspapers celebrated him as a hero, and Congress authorized a special prize payment, with Smalls personally receiving $1,500 for delivering the Planter to Union forces. Meanwhile, the Confederacy placed a $4,000 bounty on his head. But Smalls wasn't finished serving the Union cause. He immediately provided valuable intelligence about Confederate defenses around Charleston Harbor, drawing detailed maps from memory and revealing the Confederates' signal book codes. This information led to the capture of Coles Island just a week after his escape.
This man knows more about the harbor defenses than anyone we've encountered. His knowledge is invaluable.
Rear Admiral Samuel Francis DuPont wrote that Smalls is superior to any who have come into our lines, intelligent as many of them have been. Smalls went on to serve as a pilot for various Union vessels, including the ironclad Keokuk, where he was wounded during battle in April 1863. His knowledge of coastal waters proved invaluable to Union naval operations. During one particularly fierce battle, when the white crew members were paralyzed with fear, Smalls calmly took command, navigating the vessel to safety. His courage under fire earned him the respect of even the most prejudiced sailors. Eventually, he was promoted to captain and given command of the very ship he had seized, the Planter, making him the first black captain of a vessel in U.S. service. As the Civil War drew to a close, Smalls began to build a new life. Using prize money from the capture of the Planter, he purchased the mansion of Henry McKee, the very man who had once enslaved him during a tax auction of properties abandoned by fleeing Confederates. In a remarkable act of compassion that speaks volumes about his character, when McKee's wife later fell on hard times, Smalls allowed her to live in the home until her death. Smalls understood that true freedom required more than just physical liberation. It demanded education. He established a school for African American children in Beaufort, often paying teachers from his own pocket when funds ran short.
Knowledge is the pathway from slavery to freedom.
In 1864, while in Philadelphia, he was arrested for riding in a whites-only streetcar. Rather than accept this injustice, he organized a boycott that ultimately led to the desegregation of Philadelphia's transit system by 1867. In 1868, he was elected to the South Carolina House of Representatives, where he helped create the South Carolina Land Commission to finance the redistribution of land to former slaves. Between 1868 and 1879, this commission transferred titles to 14,000 black families. In 1874, Smalls achieved what would have seemed impossible just a decade earlier. He was elected to the United States Congress. He would go on to serve 5 non-consecutive terms in the U.S. House of Representatives between 1874 and 1887. During his time in Congress, Smalls served on numerous committees, demonstrating leadership skills that earned respect across party lines. He authored legislation establishing the first free and compulsory public school system in the United States. His most powerful moment came during a speech to the South Carolina legislature, where he declared,
My race needs no special defense, for the past history of them in this country proves them to be the equal of any people anywhere. All they need is an equal chance in the battle of life.
As the Reconstruction era ended and white supremacist forces regained control across the South, Smalls continued to fight for justice. At the 1895 South Carolina Constitutional Convention that sought to strip black citizens of voting rights, he was one of just 6 black delegates who refused to sign the new Constitution in protest. From 1889 to 1913, he served as collector of the Port of Beaufort, maintaining his influence despite the rising tide of Jim Crow laws. In 1913, in one of his final acts as a community leader, he prevented a lynch mob from killing 2 black suspects in the murder of a white man. Robert Smalls died on February 23, 1915, in the same town where he had been born into slavery 75 years earlier. He was buried at Tabernacle Baptist Church in Beaufort, where his grave stands as a testament to his extraordinary journey. For decades after his death, as the lost cause ideology took hold across America, Smalls' remarkable achievements were largely erased from mainstream historical narratives. It wasn't until January 2017 that President Barack Obama established the Reconstruction-era National Monument in Beaufort County, finally giving proper recognition to Smalls' pivotal role in American history. Robert Small's life journey, from enslaved man to ship captain, from property to congressman, represents the very best of American courage and determination. In a single night in 1862, he seized not just a Confederate vessel, but his own destiny. His story reminds us that extraordinary courage can emerge from the most oppressive circumstances, and that one person's bold actions can help bend the arc of history toward justice. The Gullah saying, "Every goodbye ain't gone," seems fitting for Small's legacy. Though he may have departed this world, his impact continues to resonate. His courage in the face of seemingly impossible odds, his commitment to education, and his unwavering belief in equality remain as relevant today as they were over a century ago. If you found this story as inspiring as we did, please like this video and subscribe to learn more about extraordinary Americans whose stories deserve to be told. If you would, please share this video to help ensure that Robert Smalls finally receives the recognition he deserves in our national memory. Thanks for watching.